While Kyler Murray's play hasn't been great the last couple weeks, the massive overreaction is unnecessary. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. Free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I've been in sports radio in Phoenix since 2011. Been hosting this lovely podcast since 2017. I said going into the season it would be exciting. Didn't know what it meant. Don't know what we're going to expect, but it's going to be exciting. And it's been exciting. It's been interesting. It's been dumbfounding. It's been electric. It's been heavenly. It's been everything in various parts of it. And crunching the numbers and trying to figure out what we've witnessed so far through 4 weeks is a tall task. There are a couple things I want to discuss today. There are many positives through 4 weeks. Okay. For those that know me, know I don't do this just as an exercise. I treat you like adults. If things aren't going well, you'll hear it. If things are going well, you'll hear it. If there's negatives in the positives, if there's positives in the negatives, you'll hear it all. And there are some positives through 4 weeks. Is Monti at fault for the roster construction? I need to do this segment, I guess. Twitter's been ablaze over the weekend. Needs to be discussed. Kyler Murray, while hasn't been perfect through 4 weeks, the massive overreaction is somewhat hysterical. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Kyler Murray hasn't been great the last couple weeks. Kyler Murray has led first series touchdowns in all 4 of the games this year. The Cardinals went toe-to-toe with Detroit 2 weeks ago and then obviously got boat raced by a fast and potent offense in the Washington Commanders. The good first about Kyler Murray and the offense. Kyler Murray is still top 10 in QBR. All the metrics, all the numbers. Kyler Murray is having a good season through 4 weeks. That's the good. The offense has a top 5 amount of explosive plays. That means 10-yard runs, 20-yard passes. Where many NFL offenses are struggling, the Cardinals are at least above water with a B, fringe B+ grade during large portions of the season so far. Kyler Murray also hasn't played well the second half of the last 2 games. And what I've been struggling with is how much of it is obviously his to blame. And for those that have listened to this podcast every day, you'll know I was always on the side of Kyler Murray over Cliff Kingsbury. I always thought that it was a culture thing, it was a culture fit. And I saw too many oh my God moments, as I call them, from Kyler Murray to think that he's not fit to be a borderline elite starting quarterback in the NFL. And I also said going into last week that if they lay an egg, uncomfortable conversations are right around the corner, but not yet. We need to see the body of work in 2024. We need to see if Kyler Murray's the reason the Cardinals lose games more than he's the reason why they win games. He has no control over the defense. All he can do is put the offense in the best spot to score points and also put the defense in the best spot to not have short fields caused by turnovers, quick 3-and-outs, and things like that. It's a very, very if you're like, oh no, Kyler's not the guy you thought that before the season started. Nothing you've seen this year would tip the scale for you from being a Kyler person to not Kyler person. Let's be honest. It's just confirmation bias at its finest. It's lazy. It's easy. So just shut your eyes during the first 3 quarters of the Bills game and during the Rams game. You just shut your eyes. You're like, oh, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Like, people have thought the same way about Kyler Murray, one way or the other, pretty much since 2021. I'm really turning the corner on Kyler Murray being the guy. Nobody who's not been a Kyler guy has ever said that. Let's be honest. So it's confirmation bias one way or the other. And it was compounded by the fact that the Cardinals played a Cliff Kingsbury-led offense this past Sunday. I think that's where the NOS, as it were, Fast and the Furious-wise, nitrous oxide, was sprayed all over this fire surrounding the Kyler Murray conversation. That's where I think the massive overreaction came from. He's not the guy. He's too short. He's this. He's that. Okay. I actually have a very special guest on tomorrow that I'm going to ask this question to, because he or she is much smarter than I am. What I struggle with, and I'm just going to be open with you, like, yeah, I can be like, well, here, this is why this is why this. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm struggling with. I can't help but look around the rest of the NFL and compare. I'm not doing it for anything other than what would happen if the Cardinals entertain moving off Kyler Murray. You look at the rest of the NFL. There are 10 quarterbacks that you take over Kyler Murray, without a doubt. There's a couple that you'd flip a coin, and the rest, no way. So it comes down to the question: is it just about fit, or are people not looking at the grand scale of things and realizing the grass isn't just not greener. The grass is dead on the other side compared to Kyler Murray for the majority of quarterbacks in the NFL. That's what I struggle with. Because I think that after 2024, we'll know. And it's, it's year 6. I don't care. That part I don't care about. That part I don't care about. This defense is awful. Okay? So it makes it more difficult to run an offense when the defense can't stop a nosebleed. It changes the construct of everything. The offense has to be more reactive than proactive. And when the score is 0-0, they go down the field and they score a touchdown. They did it to the start, the first 4 games of the season. So that's what I struggle with. What I do know is, in my humblest of opinions, that it is a wild overreaction that moving off Kyler Murray is the move, as of now. Listen, I'm not so hell-bent on being right that I won't have the conversation about the other side. It's an open conversation, but the floor isn't open for discussion yet. The coffee's just being made. Donuts are being put out. City Hall hasn't started yet. Now, if the Cardinals start 1-7 or 1-8, we can have a conversation. But I will not have the move off Kyler Murray conversation unless something goes terribly awry in 2024. And we're through 4 weeks, man. 1-3, just pretend the Rams were healthy and the Cardinals lose to the Rams. They were supposed to start 0-3 anyways and beat Washington. Who cares? It's the NFL. Cardinals should be fine, and if they're not, we'll have the conversations. One of the conversations that we need to have now is Monti Ossenfort at fault for going too slow in the rebuild process. You wanted to have it, we're going to have it. Next, Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. So you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. NFL fans, you paying attention? They're America's number one sportsbook. You might want to. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and much more on the same page where you place your bets. we're in the information age, baby. How long has the information age been? For a long time, and we're still in it. So the more information you have, the more intelligent you'd seem to be in an effort to make a wager, depending on what your thought process is. So you get the latest stats, live play-by-play, in the same spot where you're placing your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Go to FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals, hit that subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on. I got absolutely abused by Washington Commanders fans, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. I mean, it is a little silly that an organization as dysfunctional as the Commanders are coming out and saying, all Cardinals are a poverty franchise. Like, do you just close your eyes the last 10 years in Washington, the last 30 years in Washington? Come on. Yeah, la. Come on. Yeah, if you want to go leave a review where you get the reviews, that'd be beneficial for me. Woo! Monti Ossenfort. So this is just another conundrum. It's like with two, like, I don't know. It's with two entities that are coming from both sides of each other, and they're like crossing, and they haven't all the way crossed so you could see again. That's kind of where I'm at with this whole situation. It's like I said before the season started, this is going to be a 2-year process, 2025, ready to rock. And then the impatience of me, it's like, well, why do you have to wait? They've got the capital. They've got the draft picks. They've got pillars in place. Why not just go now? There's a bunch of bad teams that are looking to offload contracts with really good players. Just go do it. And then I think, well, no, just they've got some rookies who are playing pretty well. Go all offseason, next offseason, and then take the world by storm. It's hard to get everybody acclimated when you trade for, veterans who haven't been in the scheme, whether it be an offense or defense. It's a learning curve anyways. You're really playing for 2025 anyways. And then I see, the Raiders are in shambles. Why not trade for Max Crosby? Micah Parsons, even though he's hurt, trade for now. Do that. Do that. Trade for corner. Like, they've got all the money. It's like pop, 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 back and forth. And I don't know where I lay. I'm not ready to have this conversation. It's not like I'm not prepared to. It's not time yet to fault Monti Ossenfort, in my opinion. This was the choice made when he got hired. It's gonna be a while. They're rebuilding, and this in no way is a correlative towards Steve Keim. Remember, I said I wouldn't compare this roster and blame the past regime. I won't, because it's not. This was a decision made by Monti Ossenfort to bolster the offense this offseason and do the same with the defense next offseason, you'd assume. And I'll talk about the positives in next segment, and you'll start to see things coming into play here, forming into shape. While they gave up a 40-burger last week, so not everything is in its right state and matured and ready to go, there are some positives. On top of the fact that Darius Robinson and B. Childers are out. We'll see if Darius Robinson, if they open up the practice window for him, where he could be activated off IR and play in week 5. We don't know yet. It's still too early in the week. Jonathan Gannon will tell us later in the week. Is he at fault? This is more of FOMO for me than anything. This is missing out on what could be if the defense were up to par this year. And yes, they had money to spend. And yes, there were like 3 blue chip free agents on defense this past season. It wasn't like the Cardinals just sat on their hands and went on a darkness retreat for 2 months and missed out on the greatest free agent class in the history of football. It wasn't. It was one of the weakest free agency classes we've ever seen. So before, we're hammering the table, tar and feather Monty, get him out of here, it's his fault. Maybe there weren't that many options that were worth the squeeze financially. Think about that. Just saying. So when you look at the Cardinals, you look at their schedule, they go to San Francisco this weekend. It's a winnable game, especially with the state of the San Francisco 49ers right now. Or the 49ers could put up a 50-burger. on this Cardinals defense. We don't know yet. Cardinals have played pretty well at Levi Stadium. They played terribly. They've won a couple games up there recently. Monti Ossenfort, as an entity, is playing it safe. Yes. And he drafted Marvin Harrison Jr., drafted a wide receiver at number 4 overall. That's the antithesis of playing it safe when it comes to roster construction. In the traditional sense, drafting a wide receiver in the top 5 is not a recipe for success. I think I looked up Mike Evans is the last wide receiver taken in the top 10 to win a Super Bowl, and that was because Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay. Monti Ossenfort is playing it boring. The Justin Jones, Sean Murphy-Bunting signings don't look fantastic. They don't. They had plenty of money to spend. It's not like they could have, again, he's building through the draft. The lack of top-tier free agent, DJ Reader, late free agent ad, Christian Wilkins, Marcus Davenport, the guy was on his 3rd team since being drafted, wasn't a whole lot, boys and girls. So it's not like Monti Ossenfort just took a nap for 6 weeks. Just wasn't a whole lot out there, and he wasn't going to force it. Now, with that said, this is one of the, and I'm starting to look at draft pundits talking about mocking things like that. Not mocking draft pundits, like the mock drafts are. I know you were upset for a second. It's going to be one of the weakest top 20 draft classes we've seen in a long time. So if you're going to do something, do it. And do it big. Because in theory, and trust me, I'm a dynasty fantasy football owner. Okay, so I'm like a learned doctor. Once you're young enough, the draft picks don't mean as much. Once you've got your core, the draft picks don't mean as much. You can go get proven players, proven production. And the Cardinals are so young at most key positions. If Monty wanted to let it rip and trade 3 of the picks they have next year and pay a whole bunch of money with contract extensions for guys who don't have contract extensions via trade, do it. Do it. It's not to rush the process. It's everything that I've read up until this point, aside from the running back from Boise State and Travis Hunter, and 1 defensive tackle and 1 offensive lineman. Monty's got to let it rip. If he doesn't, I'll understand. And if he does, I'll be like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. And if he wants to wait, I'm sure he still knows what he's doing. It's going to be a longer burn, man. When you're trying to completely reset an organization, sometimes it doesn't just happen overnight. A lot of Twitter coaches well, look, teams do it overnight all the time. Yeah. This roster from 2022 to 2023 had only 40% retention when Monti Ossenfort took over. Cardinals were way, way worse than people realize, and sometimes it takes 2 seasons to do it. So is Monty at fault for what? That's the question. Is he at fault for the defense not being filled out? Maybe. And maybe there just wasn't that much out there to be able to bring in through free agency. Max Melton looked good. Darius Robinson hurt. PJ Olari out for the year. There's some exterior factors there that are also adding to the Cardinals' defense not playing well. Plus, they gave up 30 points in 2 games in weeks 2 and week 3. You just got to figure out who they are and see if it can be sustainable. There are many positives through week 4. Yes, there are. Yup. What are they, Alex? What do you think? I'll tell you next, dang it. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Bank Game Time app. I love the Game Time app. You can buy tickets for everything. Super easy. The interface is sexy. It's awesome. They now have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. It filters out the fluff, so you get just see incredible deals on great seats. So you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. The panoramic view from your seats, like this is a really cool part. Like, say you want to go to, I don't know, a Cardinals game, and you're like, I've never sat in that section before. I wonder what it looks like. Click on it, and it'll show you a vantage point in a panoramic sense of everything you'll see from the seat, not the people you'll see, not the game you'll see, but the vantage point you'll see from the seats before you buy them. If you want to know what the total price for tickets is going to be with fees and everything, there's a toggling feature called all-in pricing that'll just show you the total amount. So you don't have to be like, well, okay, so it's this much. But then what about the fees and everything? What, the taxes? It shows you the entire amount. So you're like, oh, that's perfect. That's all I have to pay out the door. Boop, done. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. The Kyler Murray and Monti Ossenfort conversations are valid. They're interesting, and I think it's way too early. Oh, it's year 6 with Kyler Murray. How can it be way too early? It's too early. I can't get over the conversation comparing Kyler Murray to other quarterbacks and how bad other quarterbacks have been. I'm not smart enough to completely, remove that from the conversation. It's like, okay, so who are you going to go get? Well, look, Sam Darnold and Andy Dalton they're doing things in organizations they would. Yeah, that's fine. Sam Darnold will turn into a pumpkin eventually. He always has. Andy Dalton is a career backup. Like, it's not. I understand how clunky this offense looks and has looked for the last 4 or 5 quarters, 6 quarters. I understand that. I'm watching the same games as you. By the numbers, Kyler Murray is still a top 10 quarterback in this league. While I am far from the person, well, look at the EPA. I use my eyes also, because watching games. I use my eyes. I see the clunkiness. I see him taking unnecessary sacks. I see him not running like. That's going to be a conversation for Friday. I'm going to do another whole segment about how Kyler Murray needs to start running the ball again. Or what are we doing here? I'll save it for Friday. I could do another 45 minutes right now, but I can't. There are many positives through week 4. Many positives. And this is in no particular order. And these are like the top tier positives. Okay, there are some things. Like Mac Wilson's look good. The offensive line looks fine. Whatever it is. Michael Wilson's had flashes, whatever. There's been a couple of goods. Like James Conner's been pretty good. I mean, he ran for over 100 yards this past week. A lot of it was on one drive in somewhat garbage time, cutting the lead to 13 points where he scored a touchdown. The very goods so far. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a star, and he's going to be a star. I think that's obvious. So I said that one first. They need to get him more targets, like triple the amount of targets. He needs to be the focal point of this offense at this point. He's shown it. And I said before the season started, he's going to start out as the third option. And they did that through week 1. And I get it. He's a rookie. He's never played before. He's never played in the NFL before. And then you saw the first quarter against the Rams, like, okay. And they were like, all right, broken plays. All right, he only had 4 catches, the whole thing. And then, week 3, he caught another touchdown pass. And then week 4, like, he's just a very good football player already. So that's obvious. Paris Johnson Jr., left tackle of the future. Paris Johnson Jr., left tackle of the future. Rated very highly this year in his natural position. He got beat a couple times. Every left tackle gets beat, unless you're Trent Williams and you're an absolute, just like brick wall on the left side of the offensive line. Every left tackle gets beat. He held up pretty well against Aiden Hutchinson when Aiden Hutchinson was on that, or Kelvin beat. Sorry, I believe he got beat by Aiden Hutchinson once when he lined up on the other side. Paris Johnson Jr. is going to be a stud, and he already is. Very, very positive through week 4. Max Melton, while starting slow, was in concussion protocol early on. He's played very well in the snaps that he's played. And I would be shocked if he's not playing starter snaps over Sean Murphy Bunting in the next handful of weeks if he continues his upward trajectory. Played very well, was graded very highly. Garrett Williams, best corner the Cardinals have. He's a dude. He's a dude. He had that pick against Washington this past week. He made it look very easy when he went up and just pretty much touched the sky and intercepted the ball with one hand, cradled it. Gave the Cardinals a chance, and then I think the Cardinals went 3-and-out the offense. Garrett Williams looks fantastic. He looks absolutely fantastic. Well, it'll be interesting to see if they move him outside. If he can really turn into that bona fide CB1, he is nickel corner right now, and he's playing great football. But we'll see where they move him, and see if he can be a guy who they can trust as a CB1. Because remember, the Cardinals haven't had a true bona fide cornerback one since 2015. Patrick Peterson. 10 years. Gross. And that's about it. I'll give an honorable mention to Blake Gillikin. Punting's been good. Cardinals special teams is one of the more underrated units in the NFL. DJ Dallas had the touchdown in week 1. They kept the Cardinals in it against the Bills. Still the only kickoff return for a touchdown this year, I believe. So while things are kind of in flux, while things are kind of in that mesh point, I guess, you can't really see what we're seeing right now. Like we can't define what we're witnessing right now yet, positively and negatively. Still pretty early. The first season of the NFL season is over. It used to work out a lot better when it was 16 games. You chunk it down into 4 games each, but not so lucky anymore. Monti Ossenfort, we'll see. But with everything I'm seeing coming out of the draft, and again, it's very early, obviously. Part of me, just in my gut, it's like, just burn it down. Use the draft capital, use the money, and go be competitive now. Because then, like, the one thing I will defend Kyler Murray with is this defense puts the offense in a tough position to be able to run a traditional offense if they're constantly playing from behind. In the last 2 weeks, that's exactly what's been happening. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Special guest tomorrow. You'll want to stick around for that. Like, no, go live your life and then come back tomorrow. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.